Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the Geektown Behind The Scenes podcast. I'm your host Dave Elliott, and on this week's show we're stepping into the stylish, chaotic and occasionally sparkly world of Hacks, the brilliant Emmy-winning comedy drama which airs on Sky Comedy and now in the UK and streams on HBO Max in the USA. Joining me is the incredibly talented Rob Tokarz, the show's production designer who has been helping shape the visual world of Deborah Vance, from luxury mansions and tour buses to Singapore rooftops and most recently a full-blown late-night TV studio. In this episode we chat to Rob about how he designs the sets that reflect the character and the story, the wild logistics of filming in Singapore, the heartbreak of losing Deborah's mansion in real-life California wildfires, and how they built a quite complex pool on a soundstage for literally 2 shots. He also shares behind-the-scenes details on Jimmy and Kayla's modular office, late-night TV history, and what his dream show is to work on. If you love behind-the-scenes stories from the world of TV and film, make sure you subscribe to the podcast. Just search for Geektown Radio on your favourite podcast app. You'll also get our weekly Geektown Radio show, which covers the latest TV, film and gaming news, along with more interviews, reviews and premiere date information. But for now, settle in and enjoy my chat with Rob Tokarz, production designer on Hacks. Thank you for spending a little bit of time to come and chat with me about the show.
Thanks for having me.
No problem at all. Before we get into Hacks, though, a little bit of just general background about you. How did you get into the industry in the first place?
Yeah, I was going to teach painting. That was my plan. I was going to get my MFA. I was going to be a fine artist. At one point, I was going to live in New York. I was going to teach painting, and that was going to be my life. And I ended up at the California Institute of the Arts. They had a scenic painting program, painting backdrops and painting scenery. And I figured that would be a really cool way to get an MFA, wanted some practical skills, still work on my fine art. And then the second weekend of school, a third-year student came and said, I'm working on a student film. Is anyone interested? I'm from Chicago. I'm from the south side of Chicago. My parents are both from Poland. I'm first generation. So I didn't know people actually worked on TV and movies. So when I showed up, the cast made sense. We were doing some movie about, the Lost Journals of Vice Margot, I think is what it was called, which if I'm right, it'll be a miracle. But it was a student film with some USC students. He was designing it. And I think we spent hours digging out candles so that they looked aged. We were setting up hospital cots and things like that. And they were just so exciting. So then once I started digging into it, I realized, oh, I'm in LA and this is a great place to learn how to do this and find out what film and TV is about. So I completely reoriented everything that I was doing and started focusing on production design and trying to make contacts. And summers were spent, I might do a little painting of a theater show, but I'd also be doing little student films for $100 a day. And once I was at the end of school, my first week was on a show called Heroes for NBC. It was the 4th season of Heroes.
Oh, okay,
and, I took a half day on the Friday so that I could walk at graduation. And then I was almost off to the races. It was also 2009. So there wasn't a lot going on, but over the years, I was able to work on some really great shows. I assisted for a while. I did a couple of seasons of Parks and Rec as a PA. I got into the union on a show called Ray Donovan. I was able to work on projects like Ford versus Ferrari. I was an assistant art director on, and Bumblebee, same thing. And I landed on Hacks season 2 as the art director after doing a show called Gaslit for Stars. And I was literally across the street. The designer at the time, Al Contestable, was looking for an art director and a construction department and a set decorator. And we were just happened to be there. Jen Lucart, who is still my decorator, was there. I will pay the construction coordinator. And we literally crossed the street at Universal Studios into a new office and did season 2, which was all about the tour bus. And then I came back, they asked me back to be the designer after episode 2 of season 3. And I've been there ever since. And continue to be there because we're going to start prepping in a couple of weeks.
Nice. Yeah. I always find it hilarious talking to production designers because not one of them has ever come into production design wanting to be a production designer to start off. Every single one of them has been doing something else as I'm going to do this for my job. And then they fall into it and it's, I can do this.
Yeah, I think there's, I think there's two ways to get to it. I've worked with production designers who that's all they did is they started designing from the beginning and they just got bigger and bigger things. And I worked my way up. I assistant art directed, I art directed, I grounded out and now I'm here and I don't want to go back because it's a lot more fun being the department head designing than it is being the art director dealing with all the specifics of construction.
Hacks is such a phenomenal show. It's had a bit of a weird release over here in that I think the first 2 seasons went onto Prime Video and then it disappeared for a bit and then Sky bought it. So we've literally only a few months ago had seasons 3 and 4 together.
Oh, great.
But I absolutely adored it when it first came out. And then we're waiting for the rest of it to land. So I've seen all of it so that you've released so far. And it's just brilliant. And this latest season goes into wonderfully wild, different directions as well.
It was a fun season. I came to the show as a fan. My friend John Carlos designed the first season. So when it came out, I'm like, let me just see my buddy's work. And we're like, this is a really funny show. Why doesn't everybody know about this show? And then I came in season 2. I was like, this is great. It's one of those, it feels like not rare, but it doesn't always happen where you get to work on a show that you really are a fan of.
Yeah.
And it's a dream. It's great.
Yeah. A wonderful cast, really funny. You mentioned you joined season 2, you said you joined as the art director. I was looking through the IMDb list. I noticed Daniel Novelty did a couple of episodes. I think that must have been started season 3, maybe.
He started season 3 and I came in after a couple episodes.
Yeah, because I interviewed Daniel first because he just Outer Banks as well, or he did Outer Banks.
Oh, cool. Actually, he designed Gaslit. I was the supervising art director on Gaslit. That's the show we did right before I art directed on. Yeah. So we've been spiraling around each other. He's a really sweet guy.
Yeah. I noticed there's actually a few people that worked on Outer Banks by the looks of things that have crossed over as well, which is interesting. But on to Hacks itself, you had some really interesting things to deal with over these last sort of few seasons. The Singapore stuff, I think, would be one thing that really stands out. Were you actually in Singapore for that as well?
We were in Singapore, I think a total of 12 days and shot for 5, I call them smudgy days because the shooting schedule was such that some of our call times were at 11:30 at night so that we could shoot the next day. And some of our call times were 1:00 in the morning. We had very bizarre, it was really, honestly, it felt like this East Asian fever dream at times. It was just, we're just there in these strange places that we were at odd times and we never really settled. We're completely flipped around on the clock for us. I forget the exact, I think it's 16-hour time difference in the future. So we just didn't know where we were half the time, just knew we were in this really beautiful place. So we scouted there in December before we shot there in February of this year. And then we scouted in December. And they had scouted before I started prepping that season. And the way that they did it is they didn't know exactly all the things they wanted to do. They kind of had a rough outline, showrunners did, Jen Palmachia. And they scouted locations of wouldn't it be cool if, what are the cool things that what would Deborah Vance be doing in Singapore with all the money that she has, with all the fame that she has, with all the, they knew that she needed to take a break. And so they scouted a bunch of locations, figured out what was going to work. We scouted again in December with more, I don't want to say urgency, but with a more specific idea in mind. And then we ended up shooting in February. Yeah, it was quite something.
So the production designer, just in case people don't know exactly what you do, what are you doing when you're scouting and looking at places like that? And what's your sort of role?
Sure. Yeah, we're scouting. It's because I've been on the show, I know the aesthetic of the show. I know the way that the characters are, the way that the characters interact, and the style of the show. And me and the DP, Adam Bricker, are constantly talking about what would look best for the show aesthetically, where we need to be. So when we're looking at these locations, I'm looking at what seems to fit the best and also to be there to support and enhance a location if we need to bring it closer. For something like, we shot at the Gardens of the Bay, which is a spectacular garden of these towering trees that are covered with living vines. And you can walk on this very swaying bridge that arcs across it, where I don't have to do anything. I'm just like, this looks cool. Let's light it really well. And there's very little going on for me there. It's just a spectacular location. Let it be a spectacular location. But for instance, the theater that we shot our stand-up, and we were in this really beautiful Victoria Theater in Singapore. It's really spectacular. It goes back to the colonial era of Singapore. And we needed it to feel like a Deborah Vance show, but in Singapore. So what we did is we ended up creating a set and I found this reference piece of this Chinese model in front of all this red on red with Chinese lanterns. And I really like the idea of that red being a lucky color. And then culturally, it's an important color. And so I was running red curtains. And then I kept coming back to this idea of a fan. So we built this half circle backing behind her to help take a focal point for where she is, and made it all this red fabric. I think as soon as they landed in Singapore before we shot, my team came up to me with swatches and said, we need to pick a color. So the color, we ended up picking the chair after a few rounds of options, and it turned out accidentally, they matched pretty much perfectly. So that needed a lot of design. What was interesting though, is I had a whole art department. I was doing all this prep before we landed. So I had an art department going in Singapore while still having my art department in LA. So I'd be working our LA hours, and right around 6 p.m. in LA is when Singapore starts waking up. So then I'm working with the Singapore art department for the rest of the night, and just doing that for a few weeks. But they did a fantastic job. I was really impressed with the team that I had there. They did a fantastic job. Really good.
Yeah. No, I mean, they're great sets out there. And I mean, who needs sleep? I mean,
yeah, exactly. That's what hiatus is for.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you had that Singapore set. You also had almost a show within a show as well, because you've got the late night set, which, I mean, that's must have been an interesting thing to create if you're used to working on more drama things, and then suddenly you're thrown into this thing which is a sort of standard standing late night set, and getting to design that, which is probably not something that was on your radar as something that you'd think maybe pop up in your career.
Yeah, it's true. You can't anticipate it, but it was such a great opportunity design wise. It was so fun. One of the things that was to my advantage is we knew it was coming at the end of season 3. So I was able to start thinking about it, at least abstractly. So it was this thing where we have this institution of late night that has so much history to it, has so much gravitas, at least in American television. And now we have our star who, this is her dream. What is it going to look like? Because we have to nod to the institution itself. It has to feel like a late night show. So there's a band, there's the desk, there's the guest seating, there's the monologue. All those things have to be there, but it also has to feel like our show. It has to be Hacks, and it has to be Deborah Vance. So what we went into that with is I was immediately drawn to LA deco. We did a lot of deco with her tour bus season 2. I think she looks great. Anything deco is just really great look for her. So I was looking at the Eastern Building in downtown LA for finishes and details for our band shell. I was looking at the Griffith Observatory for some of the silhouettes for the columns. But then we were also looking at her journey. So we created not a map, but a journey. If you read the buildings behind her from right to left, it's Las Vegas attractions moving into Los Angeles. So we want to show that physical journey. Behind that, we have a star curtain that looks like the palmetto curtain she had in season 1. The chevron flooring on the stage is there to evoke what we did in the tour bus. So what we have in her mansions, the kind of flooring she has there. Then we wanted to bring in a lot of the Vegas of it. So underneath the header, we have these marquee bulbs, which is an idea that Adam Bricker had. And I was able to figure that out actually while we were shooting in Vegas, and I'm walking around Old Vegas, Fremont Street, on the way that they had their bulbs arranged. So we put in, I went to get a count of them, but it was several hundred marquee bulbs. So we wanted the flash of day. We also ran almost 1,000 feet of LED throughout the set too, to glow the set in the gold arch and the flooring in some of the desks just throughout. We had a lot of that. We had a Vegas carpet under the band. And then one of my favorite details is the header has these Art Deco arches above it, traces the top of the stage, which I ripped off, nodded to Johnny Carson's 1972 set when he moved from New York to Burbank. So that's another little Easter egg of the history of late night. So that's where we want to do. But it was beyond the set. That's the cool thing. It's on stage. We started with a giant black box. There was nothing there before us. There was stage walls and the ladders that go up to the curves. So we needed to feel like it was a stage that had been there for 50, 60 years and had seen a lot of different people come through, mostly male, all male. So behind stage, we laid out a concrete floor. We built gold rooms, which is what we use for these little 10 by 10 or 10 by 20 rooms that we use for storage, for props, for grip, and for electric. And we made them feel like they'd been there for that long. So for instance, behind the cue card area, we had everybody in the crew sign the wall. There's this, I feel like it's a semi-universal tradition in theater. When you leave, when you're done, when you've done your time there, you sign the wall, a mark of I've been here. In undergrad, we did that in our theater program. So I had the crew sign that. We layered stickers. We wanted to feel dusty. We had old lights on top that were covered in tarps, and old gags from old bits and old neon. We wanted the paint area and the top area to feel like, it needs to feel like old rotting paint smells. It needed to feel like it had been there. So we wanted to add all these layered details to show that it's part of this machine. That was our machine. But then we expanded throughout the building. We turned the entire first floor into late night. I mean, the hallway, we repainted the hallway and we added aircraft service. We used a real dressing room that we turned into our guest dressing rooms. And we used one room that we redressed 3 times to use for 3 different scenes, Mayor Joe, Ruby, and for Dance Mom. So we were, we utilized their space really well. It's a beast of a thing. But a lot of what people don't necessarily see when they watch TV is what we start with. Ava's office was supposed to feel like what happens when we start a show, where you're tossed into this office. It's barren. People have made strange choices. The furniture doesn't match. It's this nothing of a space with stained carpet, and you're supposed to be your most creative self in it. Yeah. So that's where the production offices came from. We shot a little bit in our building, but Ava's office ended up becoming 5 different sets we rolled through. Ava's office then got changed into Rob's office. Again, redressing. Rob's a little more established, so the dressing has been there for a little bit longer. We roll from Rob's office, it becomes the writer's bullpen. So now you've got the personalities of all of our writers that we have to show. So we grew the set, redid the windows, repainted the hallway, change things around. So we were constantly thinking about how can we best utilize the space that we have. And then after the writer's bullpen, it becomes a conference room, which was easy because for some reason that one, we had a lot of time. And then last, we turned into the attorney's office at the beginning of episode 10. So we used the footprint on, I think, stage 11. I mean, we maximized our square footage.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Funny thing is, of course, were you doing that now? You could have waited a few months and maybe just gone and shot in an empty late show studio.
I know the timing of all of that is astonishing.
Yeah. It is life imitating art almost in the set. It's crazy. After sort of 32 years, I think that show be better. It's just mad.
Harbinger.
Yes. Yeah, very much. One of the things you briefly mentioned there, Deborah's mansion, of course, people will probably remember there were huge fires in Altadena and the Eaton fire. I was actually in LA at the time in Tahunga, like just down the road, watching an app.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
watching the zones creep slightly closer. Thankfully, they never actually reached us. But but obviously everybody in LA knows somebody that lost something in one of those fires. But one of the things that went was Deborah's mansion. Had you finished filming by that point?
Yeah, we had finished filming. We'd finished filming at that point in time, but we were still really tied to those people. We've been there for 3 seasons. 3 seasons at a location, you really get to know people. You get to learn their grandkids and everything. So we were lucky that they reached out to us and let us know that they were safe and evacuated and their dogs were okay, or the dog was okay. It was just a really sad loss. But one of the things that came out of it is the location managers, among other groups, were able to create scoutphotos.org. Because so many people have had filming in their houses. When we come in as an art department, a set deck department, we're going in and we're measuring your space. We're taking dimensions. We're measuring a floor plan. We know what a floor plan of your house is. Not to mention we're taking photos of all the valuables you have in your house, all the books that you have in your bookcase, all the little things, the tchotchkes, the whatever you want to call it, because we need to put them back when we're done. Mm-hmm. What's great is now they've got photos for their insurance. Now they can go to their insurance and they can say, this is what the house was. This is the square footage of the house. And so whatever, they have supporting documents. So they created this website where you can submit for if you ever had filming, and art departments all over LA and across all of these towns have put resources together to give them their photos, give them ground plans, give them whatever they need to help them start to recover. So I think that was a really great thing that came out of it.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I never even thought of that. That's wonderful that you're able to do that.
It feels minor, but it helps.
Yeah, of course. It's not going to make up the loss of your house, but at least they're all safe, and hopefully it helps with the insurance stuff. Have you had discussions about what you're going to do about that moving forward? Because obviously that is no longer there.
We haven't really had any discussions. I imagine we don't know I don't know very much about season 5 yet. I don't know if we're coming back to LA. I don't know if we're going to be in Vegas primarily or anything like that. I haven't quite gotten all the outlines yet, but
that is true.
I think we'll work around. We did the bedroom that is in her mansion. We did build that. That was a build. So if we need to do something, maybe they'll just write to the bedroom that we already own, but we'll see.
Yeah. And yes, use old footage from that side maybe to establish it. Yeah. Yes. I did wonder whether they may write something in or, but it's going to be interesting what they do with that. LA itself has become a kind of character in the show. You've got restaurants and offices and all that sort of stuff. How do you know about making those sort of real LA locations feel authentic when you've got this sort of heightened stuff going on in the show?
Oh, sure. A lot of what we try to do on Hacks is to feel as grounded as possible. We do have our style places. We do have the things that we do with Deborah's personal spaces and the late night. But when it came to locations in LA, we tried to leave the locations as they were for the most part. But if we did anything, it was just to elevate them. So for instance, the rooftop restaurant where we meet Dance Mom for the first time with that, I want to say that's the football embroidered denim jacket that she wears, which is fantastic. Costume Tress by Kathleen. We didn't do much. We moved the tables a little bit and then we added green so that it just goes up a little higher. When we go to the sex shop, I think we added a neon to help lighting and built the case for the props that she goes to purchase. For Lubitsch, I think all we did is changed our artwork that we couldn't clear. So we let these places be what they were. And we do one part, the practical things, like we can't show certain art. We have to clear it legally. And one part just to add lighting. The gay club, we built the cages, but otherwise we just added lighting. So we were just taking these spaces and just making them more of themselves. So really what the goal is, to make them more of themselves.
Yeah. No, the more you can use, the better, I guess.
Yes.
That. Are there any sort of things within the show which you're particularly proud of how they came out across the seasons you worked on it?
Late night is great. I love talking about late night. It's really fun. But Jimmy and Kayla's office, from a feat of art department and also just the way that it turned out, I was really proud of. So we first saw the space. We were going to shoot at the American Cement Building in MacArthur Park. And it's this really cool, oldish loft building, very industrial loft looking thing with exposed ceilings and the whole bit. But the one facade of the windows is draped with this concrete curtain of X's that are really organic and really beautiful. And so when people shoot there, that's what they shoot there for. It's these really dramatic concrete pieces. So we knew we had Jimmy's office and we knew that it would be established, growing, and over the course of the season had to feel more and more finished. So we also knew that we were starting right after season 3. So there's not a lot of time. Realistically, story-wise, you wouldn't have had time to have a construction department come in and actually build physical walls, build physical offices. So we started thinking about modular office wall systems. So something that you buy, you pick out your fabric, you pick out the trim, you pick out the glass, and then it clicks together, which we didn't have time to buy. So we made it just so that it looked like that. And we made these modular walls and we took those, put them in a space and divided the space that was going to be there was my intention. And then painting the rest of it and adding furnishings. 4 weeks out, a producer says, oh, by the way, we're going to build the location on stage now, which normally when it comes to something like that, a permanent set, I usually get 6 or 8 weeks to really figure it out and tweak it. But I had 4 weeks. And we were going to shoot the bulk of the season's work of it in 3 days. So sometimes when you get a break, you're like, okay, we'll finish this side. We won't look here. So we had to get it all done really fast. So at that point, I am sending set designers and assistant art directors scurrying. They're going to the location. They're measuring every aluminum extrusion, every panel. They're measuring the size of the beams in the ceiling. They're measuring where everything is in the reality of it, taking detailed photos of everything. And then somehow we have to measure these X's, which are outside the building and can't actually get access to. So we're kind of measuring them through a window. And they did a fantastic job modeling. They were 3D modeled first, and then we built a white model of the entire set and the space. And then we 3D printed the X's so that we can see it. And that's how we sold the set. And once that was up and running, we've shipped off the 3D model to a foam company to 5-axis. I think it was a 5-axis carving thing. And they carved 13 at full size X's that then had to be plastered to look like they were concrete and cement and like they've been on the outside of the building. So there's all the paint that has to happen. And we're plastering these beams and then we're laying out conduit and pipe and all this stuff is happening in 4 weeks' time to have the set ready. And then on top of that, we have to track the set over time. Because the first day we're there, it needs to feel like they've only barely moved in. Jen Lucar, my decorator, brought in a bunch of the furniture boxes and we layered furniture boxes throughout the set. That thing was totally finished. There's a piece of art that leans against the wall that has its own little story in the background. And right to the fact that, like, at one point when we start the scene, when we start to walk through the set, we had background peeling blue plastic off the glass as if the glass was that fresh. But then, forgive me, I can't remember exactly if it happened the same day or the next day. I want to say it was the next day. Now we've got the next one. They've been there for a few weeks. So the furniture is all out of boxes. So the furniture is all in place or mostly in place, but not all the details are there. The pencil cups and the books and the decoration, not all of that's there. And then basically by the time we're there the third time, it's mostly just out. Now the painting that's leaning on the wall is now on a console table leaning against the wall still. So then after that, I think we have 4 or 5 days, maybe a little bit longer, to do the final iteration, which is like episode 9, which is we had a bunch of built-in shelves put in with lighting. The painting is hanging nicely. The Lusac and Schaefer sign is now it's in its final version hanging in the desk. So we had a very brief amount of time to create that space. The nice thing is moving forward, should it come back, we have the flexibility now to expand and change and grow with the story.
Yeah.
Which I'm hoping it's a bunch of Jimmy and Kayla, because I think they're freaking hilarious.
They are. Yeah, they are absolutely brilliant. I hope we get to see a lot more of them. Yeah. And I hope they use that office more, given that they gave you all the effort of building it.
You'd be surprised how much in my career I've built for 1/8 of a page that never happens again.
I hear that. The things that get built and then they're just like gone. It's just, it's nuts.
Oh, and we built for this end of 6, when she goes into the ocean, we needed some very specific shots of Jean in the ocean. And we were shooting that in February. And Jean Smart is a trooper, but I don't think we want to let her get into the ocean in the middle of the night when it's, February. And so we needed some hero shots. So we ended up having to build, I think it was a 24 by 16 foot, 4.5 foot deep pool on stage. This is the weird part. This is the weird parts of the job, right? So we looked at, there are, of course, tons of water chambers in Los Angeles that you shoot in. Universal has several of them.
Yeah.
They have 4 or 5 different iterations of them. Almost, it's February, and we have to heat the water to a certain temperature. And then you learn that if the water temperature and the air temperature are X number of degrees apart, that's when steam happens. And there's not a lot of steam on the ocean. So we tried to find an interior one, but then it turns out we can't actually afford the company move for these shots. So we can't go to Santa Clarita, where there is one that's indoors. So we go through the process of figuring out how to engineer a pool on stage. And then you start to go, we literally involve an engineer. Then you start to figure out where pressure points are. You're typing in the volume of water, the weight of a gallon of water, and how the pressure, it's a rectangular pool. So the pressure's at the bottom corners of it. That's where the water wants to push out. How do we line it, reinforce it, make sure that it's safe? And then how do we incorporate green screen into it? And so we did it successfully. And it's like 2 shots. It was all for 2 shots. And it was a big back and forth. And you get some of the behind the scene pictures and it's funny. You're like, we did this for this. It's the ask. That's what we do. You learn.
Yeah. And also, any kids out there that are listening to this that are thinking, I'm artistic, I don't need to learn math. That's why you need to learn math.
Exactly. I think of TV a lot. It's design, but I think film and TV, it's design management. It's not just, it's be a pure creative. It's, you need to, and it's a credit to my training as a scenic artist. It's your creative on demand. You don't get to choose when to be creative. It's like, you got to do this now. And whatever you need to get into the mindset to create something, you need to create it. But then you also have to create it in the parameters. Like, we have a schedule that is constantly moving forward. You have resources that are dwindling as every day goes by. And you don't always get to make the perfect thing. You have to find the best acceptable. So I try to do as close to the A+ every single time, and then scale where I can if I need to. Yeah. So it's design management. It's the nature of it. It's why you can be a successful artist, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got the last couple of questions for you, and they're usually the same for everybody. First question is, what TV shows are you watching at the moment?
Oh, so my wife and I are currently working through Andor, which I fell off the Star Wars thing. I was never a Star Trek guy. I love the fandoms of it. I think that's really fantastic. A lot of people came in because of Star Wars or Star Trek. I came in because of Moulin Rouge. That's the thing that was exciting to me about design. So I enjoy the Star Wars stuff, but I'm not a full-on geek about it. But then I listened to an interview with Tony Gilroy talking about how it's a political insurrection rebel drama thing. And I'm like, okay, now I'm interested. Talking about how you freighted about. So that's what drew us into it. So now we're watching Andor. And then I'm also watching the Billy Joel documentary that's going on right now, because I'm in my nonfiction era of life, because I'm in my 40s. I need to figure out the world that I'm in. So I'm working through that, and that's been really good too.
Yeah. Awesome choices. Yes. I love Dandora. It's
really
phenomenal
great.
TV. And lastly, if you have the opportunity to work on any TV series, can be something from the past, something present day, or maybe a future genre that you haven't worked in before, what would it be?
Last of Us. Hands down, Last of Us. Yeah. I love the aesthetic of horror and just anything in that genre. I love the idea of textures and dripping and wet and mucky and gross. I just love that. And that would be a really fun opportunity. Anything there, anything in the zombie realm with a budget. I think I'd struggle with I think I can make anything work, really. Anything work. During my non-union days, I did a horror movie that had no money and it turned out fantastic. We had a door opening in the boilerplate and I was there with Fuller's Earth or whatever we're using, just dusting it so that the dust came out of the door. Like, I've done all that. I can handle any scale, but but Last of Us would be really fun.
Yeah, that's a great choice. And I think for a production designer, horror must be such a fun genre to work in.
Yeah.
So,
it's quite different than Hacks.
yeah, quite different to Hacks. That is very true. Unless they go wildly off in a weird direction at the end and there's a zombie apocalypse, but you never know.
It could be a zombie spinoff. Walking Dead spun themselves off and they hacked zombie.
Maybe. Mind you, you look at you heard about this Big Bang spinoff that they're doing at HBO.
I have heard about that. Yeah, I don't know very much about it.
Yeah, which is set in the comic book shop, and everybody went, okay, that makes sense. They're minor characters. Yeah. We'll follow Stuart in the comic book shop. That'll be a fun little show. And then they released the description for it, and it's basically Stuart has broken one of Sheldon's experiments, and it's broken open this multiverse. And he's the only one that can fix it. So it's gone off in this wild sci-fi direction. You're like, okay, nobody was expecting it to be that.
Why not?
Yeah, so I'm weirdly looking forward to that to see if they can pull it off. But yeah, get weird spin-offs sometimes.
Sure. That's got some second, third spin-off energy. It's
yeah, totally. So yes, it does look interesting, that one. But yes, anyway. Thank you for spending some time to chat with me. It
was lovely. Thank you.
Absolutely lovely. And as I say, I'm a huge fan of the show. I can't wait to see the next season. And I'm glad that it actually has a home in the UK now. Or certainly to. Thank you so much. And hopefully we'll talk to you again at some point in the future.
Thank you so much for having me. This is really fun. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Geektown Behind the Scenes podcast. A huge thanks to Rob for taking the time to share his brilliant insights into the world of Hacks. If you haven't seen it yet, all 4 seasons are available now on Sky Comedy and now streaming in the UK and on HBO Max in the USA. It's absolutely worth a watch. If you enjoyed this interview, don't forget to subscribe, rate and review Geektown Radio on your podcast app of your choice. And for all the latest TV news, interviews, premiere dates and much, much more, you can head over to geektown.co.uk. We'll be back soon with another behind the scenes look at your favourite TV shows and movies. But for now, we'll see you next time.